Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC basketball podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host Nelson here on this Monday afternoon, and there's a little bit of it's not really many games to talk about for basketball, and the games don't start up until a couple more months. And there's a lot of news going on around, football, college season just started, and the NFL season is about to start. So if you're interested in any of those sports, we also have, football podcasts that cover those things. So, if basketball isn't, the only thing that you guys like to listen to, you could also listen to our football podcasts. I highly recommend listening to those. But for basketball today, we're going to talk about how Shaquille O'Neal was left a little unimpressed after the United States winning the Olympic gold medal. And so I'm just going to talk about my opinions on that. Then in the second segment, I'm going to talk about some players that have the potential to be future stars of the NBA. And then in the third segment, I'm going to talk about some NBA players getting drug tested after the Olympics and, Anthony Edwards and things that he had to say regarding that. And then in the fourth segment, I'm going to talk about LeBron and Steph possibly hinting at something on Instagram. And then in the fifth segment, I'm going to continue on with my segment of players who I feel like didn't deserve the MVP in a specific year. I won't reveal who the player is until the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that if you're interested to figure out who that is. And then before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody that we love to listen to what you guys have to say during the show, and whether you have a burning question or a hot take on the game or something that you've been dying to share, we're all ears. And if you really want to make sure that your comment or question gets noticed, you can go ahead and use Super Chat. You can just hit the $ below the chat box, send in your message. It's guaranteed to get featured on the show. It's also a great way to support our channel, and your Super Chats are very helpful. And a Super Chat isn't really your thing, then you can also use the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment, gsmcspodcast.net. Either one of those really helps the show, and you can do either or. It doesn't matter. If you really want your comment to get noticed, you can use Super Chat or use the link in the ticker or the description. And with that out of the way, let's go right ahead and talk about Shaq and how he was unimpressed after the Olympics. Now, if there's any, former NBA player that completely dislikes most of the NBA players in today's NBA now, it's probably going to be Shaq. Like, the only player that we know that Shaq really likes is Steph Curry and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And he really likes Giannis partly because Giannis reminds him of himself, being, that very dominant force in the paint that no one can stop regardless of, who's in the paint. And aside from, those two, Shaq doesn't really like that many players in the NBA. He doesn't like Rudy Gobert. He doesn't like Joel Embiid. He likes Jokic, now that I think about it, but it's like you have to be completely insane if you don't like Jokic. But aside from that, he doesn't really have that many people that he likes watching in the league. And, him saying that he's not really impressed with the United States and them winning the gold medal isn't really that surprising, considering, his strong dislikes towards a lot of NBA players. And so when the Dream Team completely annihilated opponents by the average margin of 44 points in 1992 in Barcelona, only 22 active or former NBA players were on an Olympic squad that wasn't the United States. So the United States, a team full loaded with NBA players in 92, was going up against, such weak competition and so many other countries that were just, lacking in terms of NBA level talent. And when the Paris Olympics ended up happening, the United States, they ended up beating teams by an average margin of 19 points. And when you look at it that way, you would think that, like, okay, the Dream Team, they were a much more dominant team when you look at the average margin of victory. But you also have to understand that the United States in 2024 were going up against 69 active or former NBA players in the 11 countries that they represented. So even a 6-year-old kid could deal more competition, including a 3-time reigning NBA MVP and future MVP, had a more challenging path to the gold medal. So Shaq was, for some reason, least impressed by the exploits of LeBron in Paris, mainly because he disagrees with the world getting close and catching Team USA in the Olympics and in international play. So Shaq told, he was talking on the big podcast. He was saying, "I have a dominant personality. I don't care who you are." My cousin Kenny just had this argument upstairs. He said the world is getting close, but I don't think it is. The fact that Team USA, went 97-95 in the semifinal, you only beat South Sudan by 1. Come on, that's never supposed to happen. So, he's on the side of, believing that Team USA should have won by a much larger margin of victory, as opposed to the margin of victory that they won by against all of those teams. Now, I was a little disappointed at the fact that they didn't win by so many points in a couple of those games, but it doesn't matter at the end, how many points you win by, as long as you win. So I'm not really, at the end of the day, I'm not really losing that much sleep at the end of the fact that, the United States almost ended up losing to Serbia, because, while that was true, they didn't. So there's no real need to lose that much sleep over the fact that the game was close. So what that the game was close? And Shaq is just one of those people that just doesn't like the fact that the score was close, considering how he played in an era and he grew up watching an era where the United States was just so much better at basketball than every other country that they went up against. And it's just uncharacteristic for the United States to lose in a sport as popular in their country as basketball. And, in fairness to Steve Kerr's team, the 1-point win over South Sudan was an exhibition game, and they beat the African team by 17 points in the actual Olympic tournament. So the semifinal game against Nikola Jokic's Serbia also saw Team USA be able to mount a ridiculous comeback and win in the close game and against a team that's full of NBA talent. Aside from Nikola Jokic, there was also Bogdan and several other players on the team that had NBA experience. Well, there's only 2 other players on the team that have had that, but aside from that, it was a pretty competent team, and they ended up winning. They ended up winning the bronze medal, which is a third place medal is better than not getting a medal at all, because Germany and Canada, 2 of the teams that were considered to be one of the favorites to win or be in the competing race for a medal, they both ended up leaving with nothing. So the fact that the Serbian team ended up getting a medal is just, impressive in of itself. And they had to contend with, in the finals, they had to contend with Victor Wembanyama, who's like already made a name for himself in the NBA. And he's the kind of player that no other person or NBA player has seen in their entire life. And he's arguably like one of the most difficult opponents that Team USA has ever had to face, because let's face it, like there's no other team that has had a player as tall and as versatile as Victor on their team in the Olympics. And regardless of where Shaq stands, it can't be denied that the world hasn't caught up in the the race for being a good basketball team, and in the race against the United States, and in the sort of competition between the United States and the rest of the world. So Shaq won only one Olympic gold medal as part of the Dream Team Part 3 in 1996 in the Atlanta Games. So, he also played in an era where the United States just completely dominated the other team. So it makes sense how he would think that this is how the United States are supposed to play, and you're not supposed to have a close game whatsoever when you are the United States team. So, it makes sense. At least he's able to back up his talk, and he's not just, talking just to talk. So that's it for the first segment. So now I will go ahead and go into the second segment, where I talk about some future NBA stars, players who I think have a chance of being the face of the league. Now, again, this is my list, so this is mainly my opinion. I'm mostly giving my opinions. If you think I missed a player, then let me know in the comments who you guys think I missed. So I just wanted to let everybody know that before I go for a break in this segment, and I'll go ahead and restate it again in the second segment. So I will be right back.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, I'm going to be talking about some NBA players that have the potential to be future stars. So again, this is mainly going to be my opinion, and I'm using a lot of players from Bleacher Report, and I'm just giving my opinions on how much of a star I think they can be, what kind of ceiling they have, and the Okay, there we go. I apologize for that. I don't know what just happened there. That's really uncharacteristic. But anyways, as I was saying, I'm going to go ahead and continue. For those of you guys on the audio side, I just had, a connection issue. But I think everything's all right for now. So, anyways, as I said before, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some NBA players who I feel have the opportunity to be stars in the NBA. And again, this is really just my opinion. If you guys think I missed a couple of people, then, just go ahead and let me know in the comments. And, the first player that I just want to talk about is Cade Cunningham. And he's really, he's a really talented guard as it is in the, on the Detroit Pistons. And, he could be the team, I feel like he's already the guard that the Pistons want to build around. And, he averages a really decent 24 points, 7 assists, along with, that was sort of after the end of All-Star break. And he also had a pretty decent turnover percentage of 12.3, and, with a usage rate of 33.8. He also was able to make 39% of his threes and was able to make 51% of his mid-range pull-ups. So Cade Cunningham, and the fact that this is one of his, relatively younger years as a player in the NBA, he could be a really dangerous player for the Detroit Pistons for many years. So I really think that Cade Cunningham, this is he's a pretty worthy inclusion for this list, because he is one of those players in the NBA that's you can't guard him. He's really difficult to guard. If you watch him play, I understand he plays for the Pistons, and a lot of people like to make fun of the coaching situation that he was in last year, and how the rotations, they could have been so much better than what they were. And he was, for the most part, scoring a lot of points in garbage time for the Detroit Pistons. And so a lot of his points, they might be a little bit, I guess you could say, inflated, if you want to use that term. I know that's that term is it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, especially when you talk about somebody like Cade, because it's what do you expect him to do? Do you expect him to just not produce enough points? Do you expect him to not try to produce as many points as he can? And to that, I understand why a lot of people wouldn't really like that term, but that's sort of the impression that Cade Cunningham really gives off. And if he wants to give off the impression of being a notable scorer in this league, he's going to have to be he's going to have to lead this team to a lot of wins. But aside from that, he does have the potential of being a really good star in this league. Next player on this list is Brandon Miller for the Charlotte Hornets. Now, a lot of people, they don't really... He got a second chance for the Charlotte Hornets, which a lot of people weren't sure if he really deserved. But he is he is a second-year player, and it's... He's 21 years old, so the age needs to be taken into consideration. And the fact that he's 21 years old and he's averaging 17 points and 2.4 assists, as well as averaging 1.5 steals and blocks, while also being able to play a pretty decent amount of defense, again, for his age, because you also have to consider his age when you're looking at things like this, because, again, being 21 years old and averaging 17 points is, it's pretty decent, considering how he also shoots 37% from 3 in almost 7 attempts per game. And that's very, very impressive. And he has the tools to being a very crafty, a very skilled offensive player. But obviously you need to have wins in order to back this up. So the same thing really applies, from the same thing that I said to Cade Cunningham applies to Brandon Miller in this case, because if you don't have the wins to back it up, if Charlotte doesn't end up getting in that playoff conversation, then there's no way that he's even going to be considered of being a kind of, a star player. Like, the reason why Trae Young was being called a star was because he was getting wins. Now that he's not getting that many wins, a lot of people are more skeptical on what he is in the NBA. And, people, non-casuals are going to tell you that Trae Young is a star, but can you trust that everyone is going to tell you that? Not really. And so that's really what Brandon Miller is going to suffer from, just the fact that he can't win. But one of these players, well, actually the next player coming up, doesn't have that problem. Keegan Murray for the Sacramento Kings. Now that the Kings are a winning team, they finally figured it out. Keegan Murray can be part of it, and they ended up drafting him. And while they might not enjoy the same offensive agency as everybody else on the list, there is more depth in the way that he plays on the ball, and as opposed to most of the other players. Now the Kings, they sort of have to figure out how Keegan Murray fits in the rotation now that they have DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, and Domantas Sabonis, who are all, most likely going to be better than Keegan Murray this coming season, and are most likely going to be better options for the team in this coming season. But part of the reason why Keegan Murray gets a lot of appeal from the Sacramento Kings doesn't really matter, because his motor is it's incredibly it's one of the best motors in the entire league, aside from maybe Westbrook, who can continue playing when even in triple overtime after playing maybe 46 minutes in a regular game. Russell Westbrook's motor is that strong. And Keegan Murray was able to increase his scoring from 15 points per game, and over the years, and his scoring isn't really in question. Sabonis loves to set everyone else up. So DeRozan and De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk all bring very dynamic and diverse playmaking to the table, and Murray, for his part, is going to just need to capitalize on that playmaking. He was able to make 37% of his spot-up threes last year, and was also able to shoot 40% in post the All-Star break, and was also able to finish in the 74th percentile of efficiency. So if any of the Kings just so happen to lose any players, in the future, then, they have a pretty solid player in Keegan Murray to bounce back off of, either one of those players. If they go injured, if, God forbid, one of them just doesn't agree on a contract, they do have a really solid player in Keegan Murray. So, I don't think the Kings are really going to lose sleep in their talent. And another team that isn't really going to lose sleep in their talent wheel is OKC, having Jalen Williams, Jalen without a Y. And, just to let you know, because there's a couple of Jalen Williams in the NBA, and, two of them play for OKC, and two of them are actually really important for OKC. But this Jalen Williams, he kind of occupies the space that Tyrese Maxey held entering in last season, where he was already a star who seemed he was already a star in the making, and really he was behind another star guard in SGA, really holding him back. And playoff struggles are they're kind of acceptable now in this era of the Thunder, considering how they are a relatively young team. But the Thunder still need a second high level shot creator and a shot maker if they really want to compete in today's playoffs. And a lot of people are thinking that this guy is going to be that guy. And Williams was able to, broaden his horizon a little bit offensively. Fewer than 10% of his three-point makes were unassisted as a rookie, and that exploded to 25% in the last season. So, he's been really improving on his three-point shot. Excuse me. And Jalen was also able to end up being one of the best ball handlers in the on the team. 37% of his possessions, from up to 26%, ended up him having the role as ball carrier and driver. 14.5 per 36%, per 36 minutes, up to 11.3 drives in like per 14 minutes per game. And he's just one of those players that has if SGA didn't really have the ball as much, then I think Williams will be perfectly fine with the scoring, and they really just have to figure out how to implement him in that offense. And if they can get both of those players working together, then that'll just make their life easier trying to implement the next player into the offense, which is Chet Holmgren. And similar to how SGA was, considered as one of the league's or one of the team's most important assets, Chet Holmgren, after one season with the Thunder, was already getting, hyped up as the best player in the entire class. And a lot of people were even considering that Chet Holmgren could end up winning Rookie of the Year over somebody like Victor Wembanyama. And even though Chet didn't win Rookie of the Year, he ended up making second place. He also ended up playing 82 games, and started all 82 of them, which was way more games than Victor ended up participating. And Chet also, he was arguably the second option for the team. And to think that this isn't the best version of Chet Holmgren, again, he was being compared to Victor, so this means he is a 7'2" center that can handle the ball pretty well and shoot the ball very efficiently. And there was a time where Chet Holmgren actually shot the ball better than Victor Wembanyama from the field, and he also ended up shooting a lot better from three. So really now the competition and Chet Holmgren's expectations are to continue playing as well as he's played, and possibly possibly take on a much bigger role as the second option for the team. And once he ascends to that second option, then the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be a much more dangerous team to look out for in the future. And they already have a possibility of being the best team in the NBA right now if every single one of them, just ends up doing their part and more. Chet Holmgren is just a breakout season away from making this team a legitimate contender in for seasons to come. In fact, you could argue that they were a contender when they lost to the eventual Western Conference champions in the Dallas Mavericks. Again, that's a Western Conference championship team. So losing to that team is it's not really the end of the world, especially when you want to consider the fact that they were one of the younger teams entering into the postseason. So that's all that I have. Okay, there we go. I don't know why my connection is this bad, but I should be able to get it fixed soon, but I don't know why it's being this bad. But anyways, for this third segment, I'm going to go ahead and continue to I'm going to talk about some of the players that were drug tested in the Olympics. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned for that segment and, to hear my thoughts. And let me know in the comments if you have opinions on some of these players getting drug tested, if you think that Anthony Edwards isn't telling the truth, or if you just have a hot take that you want to say. We are all ears, but I'll be right back after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, I'm going to talk about the NBA players that apparently got drug tested after winning the gold medal for Team USA. This was a claim that was alleged by Anthony Edwards, a player for Team USA, and the headline is literally Anthony Edwards reveals which Team USA basketball players were drug tested after their gold medal victory at the Olympics, and you won't believe who they picked. LeBron James, Steph, and Kevin Durant, and just the article continues, led Team USA to win their 5th straight gold medal at the Paris Olympics 2024. USA defeated Victor Wembanyama's France at their home in the final of the Olympic basketball event. However, USA star Anthony Edwards later revealed that the United States trio, including him, Curry, Durant, had to take a drug test. So, in a shocking revelation during a seminar at the Fanatics Fest, Durant and Edwards told Boardroom that the Paris Olympics 2024 post-victory celebration, Edwards said, after the gold medal, me, him, Durant had what you call a drug test. Edwards added, we couldn't really celebrate in the locker room for real because me, him, KD, and Steph had to take like a drug test or something. That's what Edwards said. That's the quote. And, I'm just reading what the article's saying. So Steph and LeBron, they performed very well in the Olympics. And, I guess because they played really, really well and, considering their age and considering just how well that they played, the team sort of, the team inside that's in the operations decided to just have all three of them and, also Anthony Edwards. Well, I guess, all four of them, I have to say, end up being drug tested. And the fact, and, Steph Curry playing out of his mind in the final few games, I think a lot of people, that would make sense, I guess, to drug test him because, let's face it, the man is inhuman. He does a lot of things that are considered inhumane. The amount of shots that he makes are ridiculous in a row. And Kevin Durant as well, another ridiculous basketball player. Same thing with LeBron. All three of them are just ridiculous, and they all played out of their minds in the final games of the United States quarterfinal, and well, not really quarterfinal, but the United States Olympic tournament, because they ended up playing in the semifinal round as well as the final round. So the fact that they played so well in such a packed and in such a hostile environment goes to show you just how talented of a team they really are. And really, obviously this team, it's suffered a lot of setbacks regarding, the success and just how competent the players actually were. So the fact that every single one of the old players that was arguably criticized for maybe their old age and, still playing on the Olympics despite their old age, now that they're getting drug tested towards the end, I really feel like, a lot of people, they might think, okay, why are they getting drug tested? This is unnecessary. But a lot of other people in the sports world, they might think that this is, a sign of just how good these players actually are. I mean, if you get drug tested at the end of the game, then that means that you played so good that a lot of people, that the people that were watching you play didn't think that you were in your right mind, I guess you could say. Like, people didn't think that you were actually like who you were. People thought that you were enhancing your performance in a certain way. And I mean, obviously, with how Steph Curry was playing in that game, I mean, you had to watch him. Like, people, the French fans were devastated, and nobody, like, he made a ridiculous shot towards the end, and he was scoring at a tremendous rate against Serbia. We really needed that scoring coming in from him, and he ended up delivering. Same with Anthony Edwards. Like, they all played ridiculously well. And so I think, the fact that, again, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter segment than the rest of them, because, the fact that they all ended up getting drug tested towards the end is, it just goes to show you just how talented these guys actually are. Even though Anthony Edwards doesn't have a championship, he does have an Olympic gold medal, and that's one accolade under his belt that he has that several other stars in the NBA, they can't really say that they have. So the fact that he has one, the fact that he ends up winning one in his first trip to the Olympics, just, it's very impressive. And the fact that he also ends up getting drug tested towards the end of it is all the more impressive. So that's all that I have on this segment. So now I'll go ahead and go into the fourth segment, where I talk about the possibility of LeBron and Steph Curry hinting at something on Instagram. Again, this is just a possibility, so I'm just going to be talking a little bit about this in the fourth segment right after this short break. So I will be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I'm going to be talking about the possibility of LeBron and Steph potentially hinting at something on Instagram. So again, these are just, I'm just talking about possibilities. So this isn't really saying they're jumping from team to team. This isn't accusing any player of anything. They didn't do anything wrong, so don't expect any sort of news like that. But essentially, after these Olympics, after these LeBron and Steph Curry teamed up for the first time, a lot of people, they just cannot stop. They just love talking about this duo. And they really want to see this duo play again. So Steph Curry and LeBron, they fuel the speculation all over Instagram, posting a picture of the two of them. So LeBron and Steph, they've been rivals for decades. And since the towards the end of the 2010s, that entire era was just LeBron and Steph in the finals. And LeBron and Steph, they were named FIBA's Olympic All-Star. They were named to FIBA's Olympic All-Star 5, with LeBron James being named the MVP for the entire league. And since now the Olympics are over, LeBron and Curry are going back to playing for their regular NBA teams, who obviously are nowhere near as good as the teammates that they've previously had. And, they're going to have to compete for a championship in this season. And even though now their championship hopes are arguably at the lowest they've been ever. I mean, the Lakers, they haven't been in title talks since 2020. And for Golden State, I mean, they ended up winning a title later after losing Kevin Durant. But now that they don't have Klay, Steph Curry has never won a playoff game without Klay Thompson. And, that's a scary fact in of itself. But going into the playoffs without Klay Thompson is another thing that Steph Curry is going to have to just get used to. So, while the likelihood of them winning a championship is probably never going to happen, the possibility of LeBron and Steph teaming up on an NBA team has been floating around ever since they played in Paris. Like, ever since they suited up together in the same uniform, a lot of people were talking about the possibility of them being on the same team. And after they ended up winning the gold medal, they ended up posting the exact same picture of them having the gold medal in their possession. Now, I would post the picture up here, but I don't really have it. And I mean, if you see it, like, it's clear as day. They both have the exact same picture. LeBron's holding the gold medal. Steph Curry's also holding the gold medal, and they're pointing it at the camera. And obviously, Lakers fans, they would get very excited adding Steph Curry to the duo of LeBron and Anthony Davis, and that would immediately make them favorites to win the season. Not to mention, you have to remember that the Lakers, they also had a trade in place that probably would have sent LeBron to Golden State for which player? I have no idea. In exchange for who? No idea, but most likely the plan was to team up LeBron with Stephen Curry. And obviously the LeBron's agent, he just didn't want any part of that, so they ended up scrapping the idea. But imagine LeBron and Steph playing on the exact same NBA team. Like, the amount of havoc that they would completely bring onto every single squad in the NBA is devastating. Like, you're talking about pairing up the best player ever and then pairing him up with the best shooter ever. Like, that's just a recipe for disaster if you're every single NBA team that isn't that team. And Steph Curry even admitted that he had healthy resentment for LeBron James after, being teammates. And, it obviously took some time for the two of them to get used to each other for so many years. But before teaming up on Team USA, Curry, when they were meeting in the NBA Finals year in after year, Steph Curry, he felt bad for beating LeBron all those times because, let's face it, the Warriors, they had a much better squad than the Cavaliers in those years when they were fighting for a championship. And Curry, through all of those years, there's obviously respect for who he is as a person and a player, and how good he is, and the challenge of trying to beat him and to solve that problem every single year is obvious. I have no idea why it keeps disconnecting, but it just keeps... Alright, whatever, it's back again. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you guys think that it's better for LeBron and Steph to be rivals? Would you rather see the two of them team up? Or would you rather see the two of them leave both of their situations and join completely different teams? Would you like to see a completely different change in scenery for LeBron, or would you like to see a completely different change in scenery for Steph, similar to how Klay Thompson is having a change in scenery? Which would you rather have? And, me personally, I wouldn't mind seeing the two of them play on the same team. It would be very interesting to see just how amazing and just how great the two would team up. now that they would be on the same team. But again, let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you guys think, that's just blasphemous, would you rather not have that happening? But other than that, we're going to go ahead and go into the fifth segment where I talk about a player who I think does not deserve a MVP in their specific year. And a lot of people, they really like this player. So again, this might ruffle a couple people's feathers. But again, this is my opinion. If you guys have differing opinions, let me know in the comments section below. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about this player right after this break. So be sure to stay tuned to figure out exactly who that player is. And we are back with the fifth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, I'm going to be talking about a player who, in my opinion, did not deserve to win the MVP for a specific year. And the year that I'm talking about is in 2001. For those of you who don't know who won the MVP in 2001, it was the one and only Allen Iverson, the 6-foot shooting guard that, a lot of people, he has a lot of fans in Philly. He has a lot of fans in a lot of media outlets and a lot of viewers. They really like Allen Iverson. He's a short guard. He has such tremendous talent in the league, and he made a name for himself for being one of those short guards that was able to create shots off the dribble, and he brought a lot of oohs and ahs to the crowd, and a lot of people, they really, really like watching Iverson, and they really like Iverson's game. And Iverson ended up winning his only MVP in 2001, and the season gets talked about a lot because he's a shorter guard and he was able to lead a really decent team to the NBA Finals. And obviously, I understand the MVP isn't talking about just the playoffs as well as the finals. It's just the regular season, but really, that's another big reason why this season gets talked about. It also gets talked about because of Iverson's playoff performance. And Iverson, in the regular season, he ended up averaging 31 points, 4 and 5. Like, he ended up averaging 4 rebounds and 5 assists, as well as shooting 42% from the field, missing 11 games in the regular season. And again, the averaging 31 points per game is very, very impressive. But in my opinion, the real MVP of this season should have been Shaq. Easily should have been Shaq in this year as opposed to somebody like Allen Iverson in that year. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal in the regular season, in the playoffs, he was completely different. And in the regular season, he was also just a completely different animal, especially on the Lakers. And in 2001, somehow Shaq ends up getting put in the third place voting for MVP. in 2001, which I just don't understand, because he ends up putting up 28 points per game on 12 rebounds, as well as getting 3 assists. And I mean, the 3 assists aren't really that impressive, but I mean, he also a much taller center to be able to rack up much better, averages, much more efficient averages in the paint, getting layups and getting dunks in the paint, as opposed to the efficiency of a much shorter guard. So it makes total sense how Shaq would have Allen Iverson completely beat in the efficiency category, which in turn would mean that I would much rather have Shaquille O'Neal and his production on the team more so than I would have Allen Iverson's production on the team. And the fact that Shaq only ends up making it third in MVP voting for this year, really, I'm just questioning what were the voters thinking, because he really should have won back-to-back in this year. And again, Iverson, he had a really great season. I'm not saying that Iverson didn't have a great season, but I would much rather have Shaq's efficiency and his numbers and what Shaq was averaging in that 2001 season was inhumane. And the fact that the Lakers capped it off with an even better postseason run, they only ended up losing one game, and that one game was to the 76ers. But aside from that, they only ended up losing one game. Him is in the chat. What's going on, my guy? Nothing much. Just talking about how I feel like Shaq deserves the 2001 MVP over Allen Iverson. And aside from the fact that Iverson had a much better, a much more popular season, because let's face it, Iverson's 2001 season is one of the most popular seasons in the entire history of the NBA. And really, if it wasn't for what do I want a hot take from you, or do I think that's a hot take? I mean, I don't really think it's a hot take, because I feel like Shaq easily had the better year in 2001 than Allen Iverson did in 2001, mainly because his advanced numbers and his efficiency, they all just completely destroy Allen Iverson's in that year. And there isn't really, I'm surprised that Shaq, again, for some reason he was third in the MVP race, which is just ridiculous in my opinion. I would expect him to be at least second in the MVP voting, and he really should have won the MVP. He should have won back-to-back, because he ended up winning in 2000, the 1990-2000 season. But him is saying an MVP is saying that LeBron doesn't deserve an MVP in 2010. I respectfully disagree, because LeBron deserves every MVP he gets and maybe more. So I respectfully disagree with LeBron not deserving an MVP in 2010. And if anything, he should have won in 2010, should have won in 2011, and should have continued to win until he was 90. But anyways, aside from that, yes, I do think Shaq deserves this MVP. If you think otherwise, let me know in the comments what you guys think of this MVP race. If you would rather, Iverson keep the award, if you would rather somebody else other than Shaq wins the award, or excuse me, maybe somebody completely different in the MVP race, like maybe even Tim Duncan deserves the MVP award in 2001, aside from somebody like Allen Iverson, or maybe even somebody like Kobe, maybe somebody like T-Mac, somebody that we haven't heard from in the 2000s yet. But aside from that, that's all I have from you on this segment. Again, we enjoy hearing what you guys have to say. And thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us. So remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review, Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Again, we love hearing what you guys have to say on the show. And whether you have a burning question, a hot take, something you've been dying to say, we're all ears. And we do love to keep the conversation going. If you really want your comments to get featured on the show, you could use Super Chat, and it definitely will get featured on the show. It's a great way to support the channel as well. If Super Chat isn't really your thing, then you can always use the link displayed below the ticker and use gsmcpodcast.net if you really want your comments to get noticed by the show. We're so grateful for every single bit of support. We do have time for one more question. Him in the chat says, in 2009, Kobe was going insane and had one of the best years of his life. Yes, I know. Everyone loves talking about Kobe Bryant and what he did in 2009, but I'm sorry. LeBron, he was the better player. He was just the best. I mean, Kobe, he ended up winning an MVP in 2007. He already got his MVP, and he should have won a few more in the earlier years, I think that. But in 2009, LeBron easily should have won the MVP. No questions, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I mean, when you look at LeBron's averages in 2009, LeBron was just on a completely different level than a majority of NBA players. Like, I'm looking at his numbers right now. LeBron averaged, he played in every single game in 2009. Well, except for like one game, he averaged 28 points. And I mean, obviously, you know, he ended up winning the MVP in 2009 with those numbers. He averaged 28 points, 48% from the field, 34% from three, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Like, he was just a completely different demon. Yeah, he averaged 7.6 rebounds and 7.2 assists, but I mean, like, the 7.2 assists, that's basically 8 assists. And I mean, like, really, he was the best player in the entire NBA of that year. Like, there was no question about it. And I mean, the Cavs, they had a really good record to show for that too. They ended up winning 65 games, which, you know, you have to that ultimately gives you a boost in your MVP rating. Like, if you win, if you're the best player on the best team and you win a majority of the games, then chances are you're going to end up winning the MVP. Like, that's almost always going to happen. Like, they ended up winning 66 games, and winning that many games, and like you being the clear reason why you're winning so many games, like, obviously you're going to win the MVP in that year. Like, it makes no question about that. And I understand Kobe, he ended up winning a championship in that year, but again, we're only talking about the regular season. So and I understand Kobe, he played like in one more game than LeBron did, and the numbers, they're rather similar, but again, I would much rather have LeBron than Kobe. It's just that simple. But that's all that I have on this for this final segment. Thank you for that question. That was a very interesting question. And, you know, again, I would much rather have LeBron. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you guys think that LeBron should have kept the MVP in 2009? Do you think it should have gone to somebody else? Do you think